University of Kansas has been home to some of the most significant researchers and program developers in the world as they've developed their careers to benefit children with developmental disabilities and their families. It's been a major initiative at this university. In 1956, Dick was named as director of the Bureau of Child Research and began at that time to not only build a very, very major initiative, but also to bring together young and experienced scientists and support staff who shared his vision and his commitment to improving the quality of life for children and youth and their families with disabilities. Initially, the focus was on children in Kansas, and that was soon to change and became an initiative and a major effort that was dedicated to serving children wherever they might be. Didn't have to be in Kansas. And out of that has emerged this long history of quality service, improved service for these children and their families. And during this time, centers were developed that emerged out of the collaboration effort. And the collaboration effort really speaks well for Dick Schiefelbusch, because collaboration is what he believed in. And collaboration is really what he helped carry out during those years. Large numbers of graduate students were mentored by these maturing scientists during the history of the Bureau of Child Research. Some students stayed on in Kansas and developed their careers, but probably most went on elsewhere in the world to carry through in their own way the collaborative model, the Dick collaborative model, and to extend the mission of that collaborative model to wherever children and families were who had the need for the new knowledge and the new practices that were evolving at the University of Kansas. In 1990, the career of Richard Schiefelbusch kind of culminated in the creation of the Schiefelbusch Institute for Lifespan Studies. Something that was not only significant in terms of an event, but significant in terms of how it evolved. And at that time, the baton was passed on to Steve Schroeder. And Steve came in to make the transition from the 50 years of the Bureau of Child Research to the Institute. And he was greeted by experienced people, a changing scene to some extent, a new facility, opportunity, and also a mentor who was anxious for him to arrive. And Steve brought with him his own career experiences, his own history in terms of scientific research. The history of the Bureau has been captured in a book entitled Doing Science in Doing Good by Dick and by Steve. So we've captured the history. We want, however, to make sure that we remember the collaboration that built that history. And in 2007, the Department of Special Education celebrated its own 50th anniversary, and on that occasion established an award. And the award is called the Robert Dole Humanitarian Award for service to the disability community. Awardees of that award must have a Kansas connection in addition to their contributions to the disability community. Ross and Mariana Beach were the second recipients. We all know their contributions and their Kansas connections. Dick Schiefelbusch is the third recipient, the person whom we're honoring, along with his collaborators. And he insisted that we think deeply about this award and about what makes it so significant, and that is the collaboration, all the people who contributed through collaborative efforts throughout the years of the 50 years of service that continues. We have with us today not all of those collaborators for 50 years, but 3 distinguished representatives, and we're pleased that you're going to share some of your observations and experiences of that collaborative relationship that you shared amongst yourselves and with Dick. Vance Hall, Joe Spradlin, Stephen Schroeder. You know the guys? You think so? All right. So we're through the transition, well into the new half century of all that you aspired to do in your second 50. So what we'd like to do is to just talk among ourselves. And Dick, I'd like to kind of begin with you. You've touched the careers of generations of professionals here, elsewhere. And for those who have been fortunate to be your colleague, we know you, we know your work, and we know what you've achieved. What we would like to have you share with us, if you will, is what Dick Schiefelbusch would want to be remembered most for.
Collaboration has a very flexible meaning. It's not that you collaborate, but who you collaborate with. And the people got better and better. Now maybe you can say there was room for improvement. But at a time when we started, there wasn't a system in place, either within the university or within the state, or perhaps anywhere, a system for really appropriately studying children with major disabilities. So we had to find out how and why. I think from the very moment we started, there were people who knew more than I, and we worked together. And as it went along, we got more and more credit. And I've been trying ever since to give this credit to the people who were really the appropriate, the good collaborators over that whole period of time. You know that has to be true. How do you get better? Well, the people have interests, they work hard, they give of themselves, they are proud of what is achieved, they hang in there together, they grow, they train, they give appropriate credits to their colleagues as they originate in their work. And after a while, people begin to say, well, those guys are doing good stuff. They really have something going there. Let's give them a little bit more money. No, I would say the important thing is to start with something important. What we were trying to do from the very beginning was an important thing to do. Let's take a look at that. There were people in the state that were very, very unhappy with the children circumstances in institutions, but they didn't know what to do about it. So if they were presented with something that looked reasonably good, they were likely to improve it. So we shared, the collaborators from the beginning, the collaborators that we collaborated with, not just me, but we, they supported us. And when we had something to show called data, when we had something that looked good because we could replicate it, and it looked good because it was important, it changed the assumption of what these children were appropriately, what environment they were appropriately placed in, rather than a minimal environment that had no stimulation whatsoever.
And you're going to be remembered for addressing a very significant problem, as you just mentioned, the needs of children. And you were very instrumental in that. And when you made reference to you were here first and then people came and they got better, I think you have to also feel good about the fact everyone learned from what they were doing. And so the better, right.
All of us learned.
Exactly, very significant. Would you comment just for a moment on the University of Kansas as you think about how it contributed to the disability community and allowed you and your colleagues and your collaborators to do that?
I would like to mention, if it's appropriate, both the good and the bad. Maybe most of the bad were because it was a certain time in the history of universities, or it was a time when universities really didn't know how to create a research institute. There was no precedent in their minds. So I think what we had to do was to convince them that the way we were doing it was good, not just what we attempted to do. We had to convince them that they should support us and learn from us as well as we were learning from them. They were in the authority, of course. Now, I think the whole world, if you will, knew very little about how to give an even break to children with problems at the lower end. It was an opportunity that they didn't know how to seize. It was there, but it wasn't recognized as being there appropriate way. In a quick way, we had very different range of children that we attempted to assist in growth and development. Some of them were in poverty areas, some were bad institutions, some in schools that didn't know how to place them or stimulate them. It was a learning quest that was shared across the whole range. And I think you could say there was a readiness for what we attempted to do. We could feel it very early on. People came to us and asked to see what we were doing. It was that immediate.
Can you think of any particular event at the University of Kansas that was kind of the pivotal moment over the years that gave you confidence that you were at the right place?
Well, in point of time, I would say the most critical early was when Joe Spradlin and his colleagues at Parsons showed their data to anyone who wanted to come and look. And they did come. That changed the whole picture. And when we first made a presentation at a national meeting, they hung around after it was over, sometimes for 45 minutes or an hour. They were seeking to do the same things we were seeking to do. So you could say that the early experiences that we shared were breakthrough experiences.